What really happened to the stars of Green Acres once the cameras stopped rolling? They were America's favorite farmers, neighbors, and dreamers. But away from Hooterville's sunny fields came battles with illness, loss, and heartbreak few ever knew. Join us as we reveal how 13 beloved stars said their final goodbye. Eddie Albert as Oliver Wendell Douglas. When Eddie Albert first stepped into the role of Oliver Wendell Douglas in Green Acres in 1965, he was 59 years old, a dapper, idealistic New York lawyer determined to trade the bustle of Manhattan for the simple life of farming in Hooterville. As Oliver, Albert radiated a stubborn optimism, delivering exasperated speeches about farming while surrounded by eccentric neighbors and his glamorous, city-loving wife. Born April 22, 1906, in Rock Island, Illinois, Edward Albert Heimberger grew up in Minnesota and studied at the University of Minnesota before pursuing a career in entertainment. He worked in radio and stage before transitioning to film in the 1930s. During World War II, Albert served heroically as a U.S. Navy lieutenant, participating in the Battle of Tarawa, where he rescued 47 Marines under heavy fire, an act that earned him the Bronze Star. His Hollywood career was remarkably versatile. Albert earned 2 Academy Award nominations for Best Supporting Actor in Roman Holiday, 1953, and The Heartbreak Kid, 1972. He appeared in dramas, comedies, and even action films, but Green Acres cemented his place in pop culture. Away from the screen, Albert was a passionate environmentalist long before it was fashionable, advocating for urban gardening and pollution control. He married Mexican actress Margot in 1945, and they remained together until her death in 1985. The couple had a son, actor Edward Albert Jr., who became his father's caregiver in later years. In the early 1990s, Albert was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, but he continued to live at home with the support of his family, maintaining a routine of gardening and short walks. In his final years, Albert's health gradually declined, though his mind occasionally sparked with clarity. He died of pneumonia on May 26, 2005, at the age of 99, just 1 year shy of reaching a century. Eva Gabor as Lisa Douglas. When Eva Gabor brought Lisa Douglas to life in Green Acres in 1965, she was 46 years old, radiant, poised, and exuding the effortless glamour of a Hungarian socialite hopelessly mismatched with the rural chaos of Hooterville. Draped in fine gowns while tending chickens or attempting farm chores, Lisa became the show's comedic crown jewel. Eva's musical accent, sparkling wit, and ability to deliver absurd lines with complete sincerity made her one of television's most iconic fish-out-of-water characters. Born February 11, 1919, in Budapest, Hungary, Eva was the youngest of the famous Gabor sisters, alongside Zaza and Magda. She fled war-torn Europe for America in the 1940s, carving out a career in Hollywood at a time when foreign-born actresses were often typecast. Eva broke that mold, appearing in films like Gigi, 1958, and lending her voice to Disney's Duchess in The Aristocats, 1970, and Miss Bianca in The Rescuers, 1977. Her personal life was as glittering and as turbulent as her on-screen persona. Eva married 5 times, each union ending in divorce. She moved in the same circles as Hollywood's elite, attending lavish parties and befriending political figures and royalty. Yet, behind the glamour, she carried the quiet scars of displacement, having rebuilt her life in a foreign land after losing her homeland to war. By the early 1990s, Eva's health began to falter. She suffered a series of setbacks, including a hip injury that limited her mobility. In 1995, during a trip to Mexico, she contracted food poisoning, which quickly developed into pneumonia. The illness worsened rapidly, and she passed away on July 4, 1995, in Los Angeles at the age of 76. Pat Buttram as Mr. Haney. When Pat Buttram stepped into the role of Mr. Eustace Haney in Green Acres in 1965, he was 50 years old, a wiry, sharp-eyed peddler whose nasal drawl and endless supply of overpriced bargains made him one of Hooterville's most colorful schemers. Mr. Haney was the kind of man who could sell you your own hat and make you thank him for it. And Buttram played him with such sly charm that audiences couldn't help but love him, even as he fleeced Oliver Douglas week after week. Born Maxwell Emmett Buttram on June 19, 1915 in Addison, Alabama, Pat grew up in a small town, the son of a Methodist minister. He initially studied for the ministry himself but found his calling in entertainment, starting on radio in Chicago before heading to Hollywood. His unique voice, a high-pitched Southern twang, became his trademark, leading to steady work in films alongside Gene Autry in the 1940s and 50s. Buttram's personal life was marked by love, loss, and a bittersweet resilience. In 1948, he married actress Sheila Ryan, a stunning former contract player at 20th Century Fox, who had been linked romantically to big names like Clark Gable before settling down with Pat. Despite their outwardly happy life, Hollywood pressures and the demands of both careers meant long stretches apart. They had a daughter, Carrie, and friends described Pat as a deeply devoted father, often rearranging his schedule to be with her. Tragedy struck in 1975 when Sheila died suddenly of lung cancer at just 54 years old. The loss devastated Pat, who never remarried, choosing instead to focus on his work and his daughter. Off-screen, Pat was a generous man, often donating anonymously to charities and helping struggling friends in the industry. Still, he kept his grief private, masking it behind humor. His later years were marked by declining health, including kidney failure. He spent his final months in California, surrounded by family and close friends, and passed away on January 8, 1994 at the age of 78. Frank Cady as Sam Drucker. When Frank Cady first appeared as Sam Drucker, the mild-mannered general store owner, in Green Acres in 1965, he was 50 years old. Sam wasn't just a shopkeeper. He was the unofficial heartbeat of Hooterville, dispensing everything from canned beans to gossip, always with a knowing smile. Born September 8, 1915 in Susanville, California, Frank Randolph Cady's path to fame was anything but straightforward. He studied journalism at Stanford University, but the world of print wasn't enough. He found himself drawn to the stage. After working in radio and theater, World War II interrupted his career. Cady served in the U.S. Army Air Forces, stationed in England, before returning home to rebuild his acting life from scratch. His post-war years were a grind of small roles in films and guest appearances on television, but his steady professionalism and ability to make even the smallest part memorable eventually opened bigger doors. Cady's personal life was unusually steady for Hollywood. He married his college sweetheart, Shirley, in 1940, and they remained together for over 6 decades, a marriage that weathered war, career uncertainty, and the fickle nature of show business. Friends described their relationship as one built on quiet devotion rather than public spectacle. Even after Green Acres ended in 1971, Frank resisted the lure of chasing big city fame, preferring the calm of his home life. Yet his later years weren't without shadows. Cady largely withdrew from acting after the early 1990s, retreating into private life as health issues began to creep in. He and Shirley moved to Oregon, where they lived quietly, far from the cameras. In 2008, Shirley passed away, ending a 68-year love story. Frank followed her 4 years later, dying peacefully in his sleep on June 8, 2012, at the age of 96. Tom Lester as Eb Dawson. When Tom Lester stepped into the role of Eb Dawson in Green Acres in 1965, he was just 27 years old. Young, eager, and perfectly believable as the wide-eyed, slightly clueless farmhand devoted to Oliver and Lisa Douglas. Eb's mix of rural charm, naivety, and boundless enthusiasm made him one of the show's most lovable characters. Born September 23, 1938, in Laurel, Mississippi, Thomas William Lester grew up on a farm, the son of a farmer and a homemaker. He earned a degree in chemistry and biology from the University of Mississippi with the intention of becoming a teacher. But a move to Los Angeles and a chance encounter at an acting workshop changed his life's trajectory. His natural authenticity, unlike the more polished Hollywood types, caught the attention of casting directors, landing him the role of Ebb over hundreds of hopefuls. After Green Acres ended in 1971, Lester faced the harsh reality of typecasting. Hollywood had trouble seeing past the affable farmhand, and major roles became rare. While many actors would have chased fame through any means necessary, Lester walked away from the spotlight for years, working as a farmer and traveling as a Christian speaker. His deep religious faith became the cornerstone of his identity, and he was known for refusing roles that conflicted with his beliefs, even if it meant losing out on lucrative opportunities. Lester never married until much later in life, a surprise to many who assumed his clean-cut looks and celebrity would have brought endless romantic possibilities. In 2007, at the age of 68, he wed Cady, a much younger woman, a union that drew quiet curiosity from fans and friends alike. Behind closed doors, Lester remained intensely private about his marriage, preferring to let his public image revolve around his faith and acting career. In his later years, Lester's health began to decline due to Parkinson's disease, a diagnosis he lived with for years before it became public. As the illness progressed, he withdrew from public appearances, spending his final days on his farm in Mississippi, cared for by his wife and close family. On April 20th, 2020, he passed away at the age of 81 from complications related to the disease. Alvy Moore as Hank Kimball. When Alvy Moore first appeared as Hank Kimball, the bumbling county agricultural agent of Green Acres, he was 44 years old. With his habit of starting sentences, forgetting his point, then correcting himself mid-thought, Kimball was pure sitcom gold, a masterclass in timing, awkward charm, and lovable incompetence. Moore's portrayal turned what could have been a forgettable side role into one of the show's most enduring comedic touchstones. Born December 5, 1921 in Vincennes, Indiana, Jack Alvin Alvy Moore's path to television success was shaped by service and struggle. He enlisted in the U.S. Marine Corps during World War II and saw combat in the Battle of Iwo Jima, a harrowing experience that would leave a permanent mark on his quiet, off-screen demeanor. After the war, he attended Illinois Wesleyan University and gravitated toward acting, moving to Hollywood, where he paid his dues with small film parts in the 1950s and early 60s. His career expanded beyond acting. Moore co-founded Lobo Productions with actor Roger Perry, producing the cult classic sci-fi film A Boy and His Dog, 1975. Yet despite his behind-the-camera work, he was forever tied to Hank Kimball, a connection he never resented. Moore embraced fans' affection for the character, even appearing at nostalgia conventions well into his later years. Moore's personal life was quieter than most of his Hollywood peers. He married college sweetheart Carolyn and remained with her for over 5 decades. Friends described the marriage as steadfast and affectionate, though the couple endured long stretches apart when Moore traveled for work. In private, he had a dry sense of humor and a deep affection for the Marine Corps Brotherhood, often attending veteran reunions. As he aged, Moore's health began to wane. Though he kept working in television and voice roles into the 1990s, years of smoking caught up with him, and he suffered from lung-related illnesses. On March 4, 1997, he died of heart failure in Palm Desert, California, at the age of 75. Hank Patterson as Fred Ziffel. When Hank Patterson first appeared as Fred Ziffel in Green Acres in 1965, he was 77 years old, already a seasoned veteran of Hollywood's golden age. Fred, along with his wife Doris, was the proud parent of Arnold the Pig, a scene-stealing character who became one of the show's most beloved running gags. Patterson's dry, deadpan delivery turned Fred into the perfect straight man for Hooterville's absurdity, and his chemistry with both human and porcine co-stars was effortless. Born October 9, 1888, in Springville, Alabama, Henry Hank Patterson grew up in Texas and began his entertainment career not in acting, but as a piano player and musician in silent movie theaters. It wasn't until the 1930s, well into middle age, that he began appearing in films. His gruff voice and weathered features made him a natural for westerns, and he found steady work in series like Gunsmoke, Death Valley Days, and The Cisco Kid. By the time he landed Green Acres, Patterson had built a reputation as one of Hollywood's most reliable character actors. Behind the scenes, Patterson faced unique challenges. By the mid-1960s, he was nearly deaf and relied on co-stars to signal him when it was his turn to deliver a line. His failing eyesight also made reading scripts difficult, forcing him to memorize large portions of dialogue in advance or adapt on set. Despite these obstacles, he never let his disabilities slow him down, a quiet testament to his grit and professionalism. Patterson's personal life remained largely out of the public eye. Known as a private man, he was married to Daisy Marguerite Patterson for decades, their partnership described by friends as steady and supportive. He avoided the Hollywood party scene, preferring a low-key existence focused on work and home. By the early 1970s, Patterson's health had deteriorated further, and he stepped away from acting. On August 23, 1975, he passed away in Glendale, California, at the age of 86. Though his death was peaceful, it marked the loss of one of the last working actors from Hollywood's silent-to-sound transition era. Barbara Pepper as Doris Ziffel. When Barbara Pepper first appeared as Doris Ziffel in Green Acres in 1965, she was 50 years old, sharp-tongued, quick-witted, and entirely believable as the doting mother of Arnold the Pig. Doris was the perfect foil for her husband Fred's dry humor, and Pepper's delivery made even the most absurd conversations about a television-watching pig feel natural. Born May 31, 1915, in New York City as Marion Pepper, Barbara's striking beauty and charisma led her to a career as one of the original Goldwyn Girls, a glamorous chorus line that included future legends like Lucille Ball. She broke into film in the 1930s, landing supporting roles in musicals and comedies, and was considered a rising star. Her career gained momentum through the 1940s, and she developed a close friendship with Lucille Ball that would last a lifetime. Off-screen, Barbara's life was marked by intense highs and devastating lows. In 1943, she married actor Craig Reynolds, and the couple had 2 sons. But their happiness was short-lived. Reynolds was killed in a motorcycle accident in 1949 at just 42 years old. The sudden loss shattered Pepper, and friends noted that she never fully recovered emotionally. Grief, combined with the pressures of Hollywood, led to heavy drinking, which over time impacted both her health and career prospects. By the 1950s, Barbara's glamorous screen image had faded, replaced by character parts often offered by sympathetic friends in the industry. Lucille Ball regularly cast her in small roles on I Love Lucy and The Lucy Show. Landing the role of Doris Ziffel in Green Acres offered her a late career revival. But behind the laughter, she struggled with chronic health issues, including heart disease and complications from years of alcohol abuse. In 1969, during the show's run, Barbara's declining health forced her to leave the series. Just months later, on July 18, 1969, she died of a heart attack at the age of 54. Mary Grace Canfield as Ralph Monroe. When Mary Grace Canfield first appeared as Ralph Monroe in Green Acres in 1965, she was 41 years old, overalls clad, hammer in hand, and blissfully oblivious to the fact that her handiwork was often a disaster. As one half of the sibling carpentry duo with her brother Alf, Ralph was delightfully unconventional, and Canfield played her with a dry, earnest sincerity that made her instantly memorable. In an era when women on TV were often portrayed as housewives or glamorous career girls, Ralph stood out, a female tradesperson with grit, quirks, and no interest in convention. Born September 3, 1924, in Rochester, New York, Mary Grace Canfield studied at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York City, honing her craft on the stage before making the leap to television and film. Her career was built on character roles, those odd, scene-stealing parts that demanded subtle comedic skill. Before Green Acres, she had already made a mark with appearances on The Andy Griffith Show, The Twilight Zone, and Bewitched, where she played Harriet Kravitz. While her career was steady, Canfield's personal life was far less public. She married Charles Carey, with whom she had 2 daughters, but the marriage ended in divorce, a split she rarely discussed. Friends described her as warm, generous, and deeply committed to her children, often turning down work that would take her away from them for too long. She admitted in interviews that she sometimes felt typecast as the odd one, a label that both provided steady work and limited her range of opportunities. After Green Acres ended in 1971, Canfield continued to act, making guest appearances well into the 1990s. But in her later years, her life took a quieter turn. She moved to Santa Barbara, California, focusing on her family and enjoying a more private existence away from the pressures of Hollywood. In 2014, she was diagnosed with lung cancer, a battle she fought with dignity but without fanfare. Mary Grace Canfield passed away on February 15, 2014, at the age of 89. Sid Melton as Alf Monroe. When Sid Melton joined Green Acres in 1965 as Alf Monroe, the other half of Hooterville's hapless sibling carpentry duo, he was 48 years old. Alf, alongside his sister Ralph, seemed forever stuck in mid-project, more likely to cause chaos than complete a job. Melton's quick, darting energy and streetwise charm made Alf a perfect counterbalance to Mary Grace Canfield's deadpan delivery, and the two created a comedy pairing that remains one of the show's most memorable odd couples. Born Sidney Meltzer on May 22, 1917, in Brooklyn, New York, Melton grew up in a working-class Jewish family. Drawn to performing from an early age, he started on stage before transitioning to film in the 1940s. He found a niche in fast-talking comedic sidekick roles, appearing in B-movies, adventure serials, and sitcoms. Outside Green Acres, he was known for playing the lovable cafe owner Charlie Halper on The Danny Thomas Show, and his career spanned more than 5 decades. Despite his prolific work, Melton's personal life was unusually private. He never married, and friends often described him as a man married to show business itself. Behind the laughs, however, was a deep well of loyalty to his family. He was especially close to his siblings and often helped support them financially. Industry colleagues recalled that he lived modestly, even frugally, despite steady work, as if aware that Hollywood success could disappear overnight. As he aged, Melton continued to appear in guest spots on television and even took on voice work, but he rarely granted interviews. In his later years, he was candid about feeling typecast. He had dreamed of playing more serious roles but knew the industry saw him almost exclusively as comic relief. While he accepted this with humor, there was a quiet sense of what might have been beneath his self-deprecating charm. In 2011, Melton was hospitalized with pneumonia, and his health quickly declined. On November 2, 2011, he died in Burbank, California, at the age of 94. Eleanor Audley as Eunice Douglas. When Eleanor Audley appeared as Eunice Douglas, Oliver's wealthy, sharp-tongued, and overbearing mother, in Green Acres in 1965, she was 60 years old. With her regal bearing, crisp diction, and air of authority, she gave the character an aristocratic edge that perfectly clashed with Hooterville's rural absurdity. Every scene she was in had a certain weight. Eunice wasn't just a mother-in-law, she was a social force, the embodiment of the glamorous, judgmental city life Oliver left behind. Born November 19, 1905 in New York City, Eleanor Audley, born Eleanor Zellman, had a career that stretched far beyond Green Acres. On Broadway in the 1920s and 30s, she built her reputation as a commanding stage actress before moving into radio and television. She became a regular in early TV dramas and sitcoms, But her most enduring fame came from an entirely different corner of entertainment: voice acting. Audley's unmistakable voice became iconic as two of Disney's most memorable villains, Maleficent in Sleeping Beauty, 1959, and Lady Tremaine in Cinderella, 1950. Her performances, dripping with sophistication and menace, cemented her as a legend in animation history. Her personal life, however, was quietly unconventional. Audley never married and had no children, a rarity for women of her generation, especially in the public eye. She was known as fiercely independent, preferring a private life over Hollywood's social whirl. Friends and colleagues described her as witty, deeply intelligent, and occasionally guarded, perhaps shaped by years of navigating a male-dominated industry while maintaining control over her own image. By the 1960s, Audley was battling chronic respiratory illness, a condition that forced her to be selective with her work. While she continued acting sporadically, her health was a constant obstacle, and she eventually retired from on-camera roles in the early 1970s. Despite this, her voice work continued to thrive in re-releases, television specials, and later in Disney theme park attractions, ensuring her talents reached generations who never saw her on screen. Eleanor Audley died on November 25, 1991 in Los Angeles at the age of 86 from respiratory failure. Parley Baer as Lieutenant Governor, Mr. Patterson. When Parley Baer appeared in Green Acres during the late 1960s, he was already a familiar face and voice to millions. On the show, he played small-town authority figures like the Lieutenant Governor and Mr. Patterson, delivering them with a mix of geniality and quiet command. Whether as a polished politician or a shrewd businessman, Baer had a knack for making even minor roles memorable, adding a layer of credibility and small-town realism to the whimsical world of Hooterville. Born August 5, 1914 in Salt Lake City, Utah, Parley, Edward Baer's career began not on screen, but behind the microphone. In the golden age of radio, he became one of the medium's busiest actors, voicing everything from cowboys to comedic sidekicks. He achieved particular fame as the original Chester on the radio version of Gunsmoke, where his warm, folksy delivery helped make the character a household favorite. By the 1950s, Baer had seamlessly transitioned into television, becoming the quintessential American character actor, dependable, adaptable, and instantly recognizable. Off-screen, Baer's life was anchored by a decades-long marriage to actress and publicist Ernestine Clark. The couple met during his early radio days and married in 1946, remaining together until her death in 2000. Friends described theirs as a true partnership, Ernestine often helping manage his career, while Baer brought humor and devotion to their private life. The loss of his wife after 54 years together was a profound blow, one from which he never fully recovered. Baer's later years were marked by both professional longevity and personal challenges. Even into his 80s, he continued acting, appearing in shows like Seinfeld, ER, and The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. But in 2002, he suffered a debilitating stroke, which left him partially paralyzed and unable to continue working. Less than a year later, on November 22, 2002, he died in Los Angeles at the age of 88, closing the curtain on a career that spanned more than 6 decades. Bea Benaderet as Kate Bradley. When Bea Benaderet appeared as Kate Bradley, the warm, no-nonsense proprietor of the Shady Rest Hotel in Petticoat Junction, she became the heart of Hooterville's extended television universe. Through frequent crossovers, Kate Bradley's kindness, wit, and motherly presence also touched the world of Green Acres, linking the two shows and giving fans a sense that these rural comedies were part of one big, eccentric family. By the time Green Acres premiered in 1965, Bea was already a beloved household name, her voice and face instantly familiar to audiences across America. Born April 4, 1906, in New York City and raised in San Francisco, Bea Benaderet began her career in radio during the 1930s. Her warm, expressive voice quickly made her a fixture in comedy and variety programs. She was an original cast member of the Jack Benny program and the Burns and Allen show, where her impeccable timing made her a standout. In animation, she was the voice of Betty Rubble on the Flintstones and countless other Hanna-Barbera characters, becoming one of the most recognizable voices of the era. Her personal life reflected stability rarely seen in Hollywood. Bea married actor Jim Bannon in 1938, and they had 2 children before divorcing in 1950. In 1961, she married actor Eugene Twombly, and the couple remained together until her death. Friends and colleagues described her as witty, generous, and fiercely professional, an actress who elevated everyone around her. Tragically, in 1967, Bea was diagnosed with lung cancer, a battle she faced quietly while continuing to work. As her health declined, she missed episodes of Petticoat Junction, with storylines written to explain her absence. In 1968, the illness spread to her lymph nodes, and despite surgery and treatment, her condition worsened. On October 13, 1968, Bea Benaderet died in Los Angeles at the age of 62, with her husband by her side. Just days later, Eugene Twombly also passed away, reportedly from a heart attack, heartbroken after losing his wife. From the rolling fields of Hooterville to our own living rooms, the Green Acres cast filled our hearts with laughter and warmth. Behind the humor were real lives, marked by triumphs, struggles, and bittersweet farewells. Though they're gone, their spirit lives on in every rerun and every smile they inspire. Let's keep their memory alive. Share your favorite Green Acres moment in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories of the stars we'll never forget.